you're passionate for what you love and you're serious about it. When you see our cameras at the show, then we want to talk about it. Fair weather fans need not apply. We seek nerds that are true. Just beware not to piss us off. It's the one thing not to do. It's the Angry Geek Show. It's the Angry Geek Show.
Legends Day for me here at Rhode Island Comic Con. I spoke to the voice of Wonder Woman from my childhood. Now I'm speaking to Firestorm, Captain Atom. You've seen these guys in the Geek Lair framed. This is the guy who brought him to life for me, the one and only legend, Pat Broderick. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for bringing these characters to life. I mean,
thank you for supporting my work through the years. It really does mean a lot.
When we're working shows, I don't bring books to sign, but Firestorm #1 is sitting right there. Captain Atom #1 is right there, and I'm like, should I bring them? Should I not bring them? It's very unprofessional if I do, but I didn't. But still, thank you.
Why didn't you bring them?
Because I yell at the cameraman, my co-host. I yell at him to not mix work with doing fanboy stuff.
Yeah. Well,
So
I'm a geek fanboy from way back, so I mean.
what was your favorite character?
That I've drawn or read or what?
Personal.
Personal? Well, actually, anything that Gil Kane ever worked on.
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, the Atom, Captain Marvel after Gene Colan, and then was blessed with the wonderful gift of Adam Warlock when he came out with that. All of his covers.
Yeah, oh my lord. I have 2 of the Green Lantern Gil Kane covers framed in the Geek. The Geek Lair is where we film our normal show when we're not at a con. This is where we have guests on it, your pandas and stuff like that.
There's normalcy somewhere in this?
No.
Okay, good.
No, let's just say I have a very understanding wife who thinks that I could be out doing worse stuff.
In just 15 minutes at 3:50.
Spending money on worse stuff, and she indulges me to have my own room full of toys and comics.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. I have a wonderful wife too, who is sitting next to me drinking coffee.
It won't be on camera. I'm not being on camera.
No. She's with me at every show. We've been married for 32 years. She's become very acquainted with the shows, how the shows are run. I couldn't do this without her. So I totally understand. To have a wife that is supportive of both our lifestyles and our collectible interests, it's very important. It keeps us children.
True, it does keep us children.
Yeah.
So, what are you working on now? I know you have an independent book. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My new title is an ongoing series. It's called Nibiru and the Legend of the Annunaki. It's based off the Sumerian creation lore. In a short recap about Sumeria, they are the first known civilization. All right, the first who have qualified of all the 10 counts of what a civilization consists of: writing, medicine, agriculture, the development of agriculture, the first development of religion, and the first development of government.
What inspired all that?
What it had inspired it, it started back, I first became aware of it from reading Zachariah Sitchin's first book, the 12th Planet. I believe it's 9th Planet, but in reality it would be the 12th Planet, about those who from heaven to earth came in the legends. Back in 1929, when they first discovered these fired clay tablets in Mesopotamia, archaeological digs, they were finally able to decipher the cuneiform method of writing. And in it, they saw that the library consisted of a lot of records of dealings, of marriages, of sales and things, just general governmental records. But they also ran across things that they, at that time, simply set to the side, saying it was mythology, and they didn't look into it. Then later on, when they looked into it, they discovered the original story of Noah and the Ark, and the creation of the first worker that they called the Adam. Okay. And how they had taken what they called the hairy man that they had noticed by the water holes and streams, who showed empathy other than a lot of the other creatures at the time. The Anunnaki are a race of aliens from their planet Nibiru, which circles our sun every 3,600 years. And they gave us math. They gave us the system of the number of 12 and things that are divided by that system. They gave us the names and numbers of the planets in our solar system long before there were any telescopes to even see these planets. So through that, they started educating their people in order to communicate with them. And they took what they called the hairy man, and they altered his DNA. All right, so all these years they've been looking for the quote missing link, but there is not a missing link. We are that. All right, they changed the Neanderthal man to us, so there is no consecutive bone record showing the progression. It goes from them to us. Exactly. And within the records, Enki, one of the two brothers, his other brother Enlil, they had a revolt from their own workers that they brought from their planet here. And their workers said that the work was too hard because they came here to find gold. So they could grind gold into its smallest particles to create what we now know as a ionosphere surrounding their planet to protect their planet from the solar radiation that was destroying their atmosphere. Very similar to what's going on now with our world and the ozone layers, right? And so in order to facilitate their need and quantity of this substance, they decided to take a species that was indigenous to our world, alter them, put their mark and their image on them, so thus made in their image and their likeness. Okay? Now, on a personal level, I was born and raised evangelical Baptist. Okay? But as a young man, in Sunday school, you know, when we're reading all the stories that they're trying to teach us, I questioned, who is God speaking to when he says in our image? That's not singular, it's plural. Okay. The ministers did not want to answer this. They said simply, Pat, you're a Baptist. You should really only be concerned with the New Testament.
Do you think they couldn't answer you, or they just didn't want to answer you?
No, I believe they quite simply couldn't answer me because, as I said, up until like, I think it was 1929, they had no clue of the earlier writings. You know, so once these earlier writings were deciphered, they started making the connections. Now there's another item that exists in the museums today called the Sumerians Kings List. And it's a recording of all the kings who ruled. But the ruling list goes pre and post flood.
Noah.
Exactly, and pre-Noah, all the way back. And it explains about their lifespans and how the lifespans of all the kings extended longer and longer in years. And then after the flood, Noah, who was, according to their legend, the grandchild of Enki, was one of the very few survivors of the flood. And how his brother was enraged when he discovered that a thread of mankind survived it. So from that point on, Noah Zigazurda, which was his name as a king, you can find it in the king's list, along with Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is not just simply known for the story about Gilgamesh. He was a king that ruled the city of Ur. So he is also listed. So what it is, it's a progressive guideline of the rulers of the kings, all the way up to the point of Abraham, which was his name at that time was Abram. So when Abraham was sent to Canaan with his family, he was sent by the God that he served in his temple in Ur. At that time, and even into early Christianity in the Catholic Church, offices within the structure of the church were passed from parent to child. If a cardinal at that time, and they were all allowed to marry, and they did all have children, their child became the next cardinal. It was an inherited title. Exactly. In fact, that's where the term blue blood and royalty derives from. It goes all the way back to that, because only the royals were enlisted to rule over the masses. So what you had the structure of government first being priests, then priest-kings, and then kings and priests. And it was about simply the dictation of orders, the requirements of each city god, of the people, the populace that they ruled. Such as Marduk with Babylon. Everybody knows about the Tower of Babel and how that story was told to us. And this was all originally a struggle within one ruling family as to who controls what. They divided their rulers, their kingship, by the zodiac. Which sign came into the heavens was the dominant sign of who was to rule for those times. Well, Marduk himself, I have a lot of sympathy for, because he was the royal child of two royal families. He was the son of Enki and the son of the daughter of Alalu, who had usurped the throne. So in order to bring the royal blood back in, they instigated a royal marriage between these two families, so that when Marduk took over the throne, his royal blood continued the royal bloodline. His grandfather, however, Anu, who was the lord and ruler, what we call of heaven, and heaven is simply space, okay? Not a mystical place, not a spiritual place, simply space, all right? In fact, their planet was known as the planet of the crossing. It's the first instances in our history where they wore a cross as a symbol, as the symbol of their planet. So Marduk actually lost his ordained future by a change of leadership there. And through the law of blood of ascension, since Anu, his grandfather, became the ruler, his royal blood son, Enlil, was then to inherit the throne, which pushed Marduk out of the way. Okay. Not brilliant, no, not by any means, but I spent a lot of time studying this, and I'm still studying it today, because there are volumes of this. The sons, Enki's son, who was known as, Lord, hang on a minute, with all this noise it makes it hard to think, was banished, or he lost his position of authority in Egypt and came to South America. That's where Quetzalcoatl legend lore started. It's the same entity. Notice I picked up quickly on the architecture of the civilization. And the architecture is the pyramidal structure. And this is why the pyramids that we are finding are being discovered all over the world. It was all the architect of one society. Okay? And that's what my book is all about. Plug my book, first issue. Okay? Nibiru, The Legend of the Anunnaki, issue number 1. I originally planned on trying to complete this within 6 issues. But the more I get into it, the more I realize there's too much story to tell to try to condense it into 6 issues. So the first 6 issues is quite literally just part 1 of this story.
All right, now, besides at a con, is there somewhere online that we can find this and we can flash it across the screen and we can get our audience to you?
Oh, absolutely. I have a website called The Art of Pat Broderick, www.artofpatbroderick. And also through Facebook, I can be contacted because I do 90% of my promotion right now through Facebook. Simply either private message me, friend me, express your interest. I take the mailing address, I collect it all together, and I send out notifications of when the second issue is coming out. This is the successful result of our Kickstarter campaign, and now it's gained enough momentum that it is feeding itself. Okay. It's where I'm at right now. The quality of the book, for example. Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right. In the Enuma Elish, they talk about the origins of Earth and Earth's placement. How when Nibiru first entered the solar system, right here, you have the number of planets, but instead of Venus, Earth, and Mars, it was Venus, Mars, Tiamat, and then into the larger giant planets. When Nibiru entered the system,
Be more comfortable. Yeah, I'm excited. And I'm less cold.
it struck our planet. All right. 2 of its moons struck our planet, and the Nibiru itself struck our planet, destroying our planet literally in half, creating what they called at that time the hammered bracelet that we call right now the asteroid belt between Mars. All right. So the impact dislodged what was left of the Earth, putting it into its new orbit. And during that time period is when the gravity and the forces coalesced around the planet, the water, the separation of first the water, then land, then the separation of the land. And then that's why it starts out basically 400 billion years ago, and it ends with the first verse of the Bible, in the beginning. And that's where the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, and then later on the King James Bible began with the book of Genesis. All right, and they condensed all this down into like 3 paragraphs. Okay. For instance, let me pose this question. Why is gold so valuable to us?
I can't answer that. I was always taught that it was.
Yeah. But before we truly understood its scientific properties, it was a metal representing the kings.
True.
Okay. Well, we've since learned then that gold blocks radiation, is a superconductor for electricity. In its finest forms, it can actually float in the atmosphere. If it's burnt down into a powder, it can be consumed, and it has health benefits. And we're learning that now. But it was also known 450,000 years ago. Okay. So that's what makes this a fascinating story. All of our worlds, all of our civilizations, religions, and their gods are merely the Greek names of these gods, the Roman names of these gods, the Asian names of these gods. The council of the gods, generally, how many? 12. The number of disciples, 12. Yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on. So these dots start to connect, all right? The wars that we fight are generally over control of land and people. This goes back to.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? The party
goes back to ancient
Please,
Sumeria.
Can you meet her in the lobby, please, at the ground level?
The dynasties in Egypt. The very first ruler in Egypt's name was Ptah. Ptah is Enki. Enki was granted control of the lower world. That was later on interpreted as Hades, but they did not mean Hades. They meant the lower portion of the earth. And Enki was in charge of the gold mining, which is why Egypt became such a strong, powerful civilization early on and abundant in gold. And his sons took over after him. Marduk became Ra. His brother was Osiris. In the struggle for power, Egypt was granted to Marduk. He became Ra, the sun god. All right, and you look at the Egyptian symbology, and you always see the disc with the wings. All right, you look at the Mesopotamian mythologies, and you see a disc with wings and a king on it. You go over to Mesoamerica, and you look at the mythology, and again you see the disc with the wings. All right, and also the creatures with wings. All right. They had later on been interpreted as the angels, but the wings represented their ability to fly, not physically themselves to fly, because they had ships. So they had the ability to fly. But man, in its limited ability to understand this, said he flies like a bird. So they gave him wings to represent that. But it does not mean that they actually grew wings. It simply meant that their leaders had the ability to fly. Now, go again to South America and the Olmecs, the large sculpted heads that are African features. Well, they're African features because they came with them from Africa. That's why they have the African features.
Amazing. Thank you for your time. I'm going to cut all this together. Just amazing. Thank you for your time. But I do have one quick question, a geek question. Firestorm, Captain Atom, who would win?
Well, that's a very good question, because they both have extremely similar abilities, okay? But Firestorm has the ability to alter the molecular structure. So I think when it's a face-off between the two, if Firestorm needed to do something extremely damaging to Captain Atom, he would be able to change the molecular structure, whereas Captain Atom did not have that ability. Now, let's take it a step further. Who would win between Firestorm and Green Lantern?
Green Lantern.
Why?
Power of will.
Okay, what about the ability to transfer anything into yellow?
Well, it depends if it's Kyle Rayner. Kyle Rayner's ring doesn't have yellow.
I get like really sad when a book
But
is over
Firestorm
and
will
like
still
the
be
series
able
is
to
over and then you don't know.
That's right. And Kyle Rayner is an excellent character. But for me, it's Hal Jordan. All the way.
You're just like, my life.
See ya.
What do I do now?
What are some of your favorites?
This has been a Fanboys Incorporated network production. Found on fanboysinc.com, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. Good night and geek on.